uncovering my wife's extramarital affair after 5 years of matrimony. I departed silently, in the dreadful retribution, I discreetly departed upon uncovering my wife's infidelity after 3.5 years of matrimony. A year later, my estranged ex-wife located me. Upon discovering my wife's infidelity, I relocated to the hills. I am uncertain about the purpose of this writing, although it may prove beneficial to someone now that the episode has concluded and I have progressed. In February 2018, after 3.5 years of marriage, I discovered my wife's infidelity. I held a contract position that intermittently necessitated extensive travel, yet allowed me to work remotely upon my return. My wife occupied a highly profitable role as the director of a technical sales company. Despite the increasing strain from her extended work hours and my travel commitments, our marriage remained, in my view, very exceptional. 5 years ago, at a barbecue organized by a mutual acquaintance, I saw my wife, who is now my ex-spouse, that we had an immediate rapport upon commencing our conversation. I perceived that associating with a woman who was both gorgeous and articulate conferred a significant advantage. My unrefined demeanor strangely attracted her. After several weeks of courtship, we discovered ourselves infatuated with each other. When we convened at one another's residences, the garments were swiftly discarded. After 18 months of courtship, we ultimately married and relocated to a spacious apartment while accumulating savings for a home down payment. Changes commenced following the initial 3 years of matrimony. Despite my lingering affections for her, I observed that she would dispute little issues. Upon my mention of the prolonged hours and the increasingly frequent work outings, she would become incensed as she ascended the corporate hierarchy. She asserted that it was an essential aspect of fulfilling her obligations. That was her rationale, at the very least. She asserted that my prolonged absences rendered me ineligible to contest her actions, that in truth, I had only been taking holidays for 3 to 4 days every 5 weeks, so I promised her that I could certainly reduce my trip time. The excessively circular arguments lacked a definitive conclusion. Upon reflection, I recognized my ignorance regarding my wife's infidelity. Aside from our diminishing sexual relationship and her consistently tardy work hours, I would have never suspected anything amiss. I presumed that she was fatigued from her employment. However, the several rejections I encountered when attempting to initiate a sexual connection had adversely affected my self-esteem. Despite possessing a work mobile phone, which she may have utilized, I did not observe the clandestine texting described in other articles. She utilized our spare bedroom as a home office and dedicated considerable time to it. In September 2017, Kathy commenced returning home from work and instead spent her evenings at a professional engagement. This escalated from 1 night per week to more than 3 nights weekly. While I am not inherently envious, it is evident that she would attract attention from others, and I see that she would have to deter certain individuals in her profession. Although she collaborated with a greater number of male CEOs than female ones, she conveyed the idea that her primary focus was her professional responsibilities. The initial indication of her infidelity arose a month before her return home, during which she made a brief stop at the store. I was requested to aid her with the grocery shopping. A pink object was glinting from beneath the front passenger seat of her vehicle as I retrieved several items from the rear seat. It was a bra that belonged to my spouse. She favored items from a specific clothing store, hence I recognized it as hers. Upon reflection, I recognized that the bra served as a cautionary indicator. She consistently removes her bra first, from beneath her garments, when experiencing heightened desire. For reasons unknown, I had immediate nausea upon viewing this. I was perplexed as to why her bra was located under the seat, that I refrained from making any further statements. My heart was likely racing to the point of near unconsciousness, as when I returned the bags to the kitchen, Kathy inquired about my well-being and said that I seemed to have encountered a specter. I disregarded her comment. I exerted all my effort to mask my emotions, striving to avoid appearing distressed or misled. I resolved to ascertain whether she was involved with someone that night, and the subsequent day. I started to contemplate all the clues I may have disregarded. Aside from the bra, I possessed no evidence. She is employed in a downtown office building, and we reside in a relatively large city. I resolved to temporarily dismiss the notion of the affair and contemplate devoting more attention to her on a Friday after work. I prepared a delectable lunch and set the dining table with exquisite dishes, silverware, and candles. I acquired a bouquet of flowers and an exquisite bottle of wine. I indicated the supper and all that I had prepared upon her customary arrival after work. She expressed her apologies, stating she was regretful, but she needed to attend a local gathering to meet her colleagues. She indicated that she required a shower first, but may have a light snack with me before her departure. I became completely silent because my emotions overwhelmed me. I will not elucidate the nature of the fury I was experiencing, but I had reached my limit. I placed my work cell phone in her back seat while she was showering. I had contemplated utilizing my own phone to locate her. I entered the kitchen thereafter and discarded the food and flowers in the trash. Following her shower, she prepared herself and appeared exquisite as usual. "Very well, let us dine," she stated. I encouraged her to go out with her pals. She inquired whether I was furious after casting me an odd glance. I expressed my sorrow that you consistently decline to engage in activities with me. She expressed her displeasure and sarcastically commented on my short temper while admonishing me to cease behaving immaturely. I murmured, "How foolish of me," as I stood there permitting things to settle. For once, I believed we ought to spend the evening together. She merely offered me a cunning look and departed abruptly. I retrieved my secondary phone and commenced tracking my work phone upon her departure. Approximately 20 minutes distant, at the bar she frequently patronizes with her colleagues, I observe her pausing. I resolved to locate her vehicle. It occurred in the bar's parking lot. I waited to ascertain whether I could observe her in my car across the street. I experienced a profound sense of dissimilarity, akin to that of a stalker. However, I reassured myself to quell my apprehension regarding her location. I witnessed her departing the bar with a male approximately 1 hour after my arrival. He resembled an executive from her organization. He grasped her, pulled her close, and pressed his lips on hers. My body became completely insensate, and my abdomen began to contract. They approached an alternate vehicle and entered simultaneously. As their vehicle departed, I endeavored to maintain pace with them. As anticipated, they traveled to a motel located 10 minutes away. As I paused on the street adjacent to the hotel, I observed them exit, hand in hand, and enter. I had observed sufficient evidence. I felt silly. I commenced striking the steering wheel with my fist. That was the conclusion. A complete void emerged within me. I am uncertain whether I had an out-of-body phenomenon or a blackout, but as my condition improved, I developed a desire for a drink. At this juncture, my life commenced on a trajectory I had never envisioned. I commenced my departure from the town, reflecting on all that I had just witnessed. I was weeping out of rage, as much as I loathed to acknowledge it. I discovered a charming tavern on the periphery of town, around 30 miles distant, and decided to stop and I requested a beverage while positioned at the bar. The female bartender said that I appeared as though someone had deflated my enthusiasm, suggesting I resembled a specter of vitality. I responded with a faint smile. One could assert that. A man seated himself next to me and initiated a conversation. Despite my reluctance to engage in conversation, there was an aspect of this individual that instilled a sense of comfort in me. That we initiated a dialogue, and ultimately my wife's unfaithfulness was mentioned. I informed her that my sole desire was to distance myself from her and erase her from my memory. "You are not alone, my friend," he responded, offering me a pat on the back after a brief gaze that I encountered that few years ago. "I believe there is a rationale for the occurrence of these events. Your life can now experience a favorable or unfavorable shift. I guarantee you to at this juncture, the decision rests entirely with you." His comments unexpectedly roused me from my despondency. Although I recognize my pain, I have consistently maintained a realistic perspective and he was entirely accurate that we established our identities. His name was Ray. I appreciated his down-to-earth demeanor, despite his more rural disposition, but he questioned about your plans to relocate. I never considered looking so far into the future. I experienced a fight-or-flight response and realized I no longer wished to be in the presence of this woman. Ray expressed his empathy for your position and shared that he has an idea. When the occasion arises, I possess a mobile trailer on my property, should you require it. It may necessitate considerable effort and is subpar. Consider visiting to ascertain whether you can envision oneself temporarily live in such an environment. I will offer you an excellent deal on it at the very least. You may also park it on a beautiful parcel of land that I possess that I would be grateful if you could monitor it on my behalf. Escaping your circumstances may prove advantageous. Merely a consideration. I paused to understand his idea. The bartender, who had been eavesdropping on the conversation, remarked, "If I had the opportunity to flee from my unstable ex-husband years ago, I would have eagerly embraced the chance to reside in his trailer or anywhere else to regain my mental clarity. This may have been precisely what I required. However, I felt as if I had entered a surreal realm. I informed Ray that I would consider it and maybe investigate more. Subsequently, we parted ways and concurred to reconvene at his residence in a few days. I started to perceive that I had gained perspective and a chance to evade what I believed to be a profound pain intertwined with a nightmare. I was certain of one thing, that I would never wish to spend time with my wife again. I consider cheating to be abhorrent, and it has consistently been the one behavior I believed I would never tolerate. I sat on the couch upon arriving home that evening after Kathy inquired about my whereabouts at the time of her emergence. I inquired, turning to confront her. "Where have you been?" She stated that she went to procure beverages that I directly asked, "Are you engaging in an extramarital relationship?" She seemed astonished, but she quickly composed herself and replied, "No, what prompts your inquiry?" I notified her that I had heard she might be involved with a colleague at work. "Who informed you of that?" She inquired, did I mention an acquaintance? However, I maintained the confidentiality of the name. After stating that I was being absurd, she accused me of intoxication and insanity and questioned my location. I stated that we were going to a bar to partake in beverages with our buddies. Notwithstanding her evident inclination to inquire further, she retreated to our bedroom and retired for the night. Having acquired evidence of her prolonged deception, I resolved to sleep on the sofa. I was unable to sleep due to the persistent image of her in bed with another man. I experienced self-pity, revulsion, and emotional pain. However, I subsequently contemplated Ray's trailer. The contemplation of it uplifted my spirits, resembling a revelation. I must have a problem, as the fight-or-flight response was instinctively triggered during my suffering, and I favored the flight response. The subsequent morning, our conversation was minimal, and we proceeded with the weekend as though nothing had transpired. I arranged a meeting with Ray a few days later. Upon arrival, I observed that Ray possessed a charming ranch, and the trailer was notably pleasant, measuring approximately 26 feet in length and nicely furnished. It evoked recollections of an enjoyable spring break excursion I undertook with friends during my collegiate years. Ray acquiesced to the monetary compensation I proposed for the trailer. Frankly, I nearly seized it from him. I visited his ranch property following his directions. The vicinity had hiking and bike trails, characterized by a picturesque landscape abundant in trees and scrub vegetation. Ray possessed a modest cabin situated on a hilltop, providing a view of the property, with electricity and water available for the trailer, and in proximity to the foothills of several mountains. Ray assured me he would arrange the trailer and transport it to the designated spot. I attempted to persuade Kathy to be honest in the subsequent weeks, but I was met by gaslighting instead. I explicitly cautioned her that there would be no recourse if I found out she was unfaithful. Consequently, she grew increasingly absorbed in her infatuation and began to retaliate against me with denials that I almost found the denial laughable due to its severity. I reprimanded myself for failing to photograph the two of them. leaving me without concrete evidence of her infidelity. I resolved to terminate our marriage following my experience of emotional distress. Rather than expressing my emotions to Kathy, I commenced planning. During her absence at work, I commenced discreetly extracting my belongings from the apartment and relocating them to the trailer. I felt as though I was taking action over the matter that I observed a change in Kathy throughout this era. Despite her recent courteous behavior towards me, I deemed it insufficient and belated. I too felt the necessity for a respite. Hence, she continued participating in corporate outings after work. One evening, I prepared myself simultaneously as she was departing. Upon observing me, she asked about my destination. I merely stated that I would be meeting with some pals. You would not appreciate the discussions about the shop, and you are unfamiliar with them. I interjected as she started to pose additional inquiries. She consistently articulated this to me whenever I inquired about accompanying her on corporate outings. Very well, enjoy yourself, she remarked with a rather affronted demeanor. I will certainly do so, I responded. I started forming new connections while collaborating on the trailer and socializing with Ray at the pub. I experienced an improvement in my mood after engaging with Ray's exceptional family and friends that I decided to reduce my alcohol consumption to avoid developing bad habits. I recognized the folly of succumbing to excessive sympathy, despite its seeming simplicity. Kathy informed me that she would be traveling for work the next week. She indicated that the executive team and several department heads would be attending when I asked who would be present. I wish you an enjoyable time with your lover, I remarked, casting a glance at her. I promptly lamented my statement as it incited a vehement dispute. Despite Ray's assertion that it was inconsequential, I now lament my lack of knowledge on her affair partner, P. Ray said that the identity of the other individual is irrelevant. Her decision to depart is the only aspect of significance. She irrevocably undermined the marriage, regardless of her acknowledgement. The truth remains indisputable, brother. Ray should author a book for the betrayed. Exasperating that I had the perfect opportunity to relocate completely during Kathy's work vacation. Upon her departure, I gathered all my valuable possessions, including clothing, laptops, and equipment. I did not acquire any communal items or furnishings that I wrote a note before to my departure. The initial explanation was extensive, but I opted for brevity. I inscribed, "I hope it was worth it," on a sheet of paper that I placed my wedding ring above the note on the kitchen table. I experienced a profound sense of relief when I departed. I was emancipated. The pain would require time to mend, and there would be residual issues to manage. Yet I had commenced the process. I required solitude to expeditiously and discreetly eliminate her presence. My lack of challenging her or extracting a confession did not instill pride in me that I did not scream or shout. In my view, she was undeserving of it. She dismissed all our possessions, including our future plans, hopes for a home and family, and now all is lost. Retreat was not an option. I owed her nothing whatsoever. She was capable of managing the repercussions that I had neither made any plans nor contacted an attorney. I sought a fresh start and greater clarity. The mountain air was precisely what I required upon entering my trailer. I recommenced running the following week, and it was exhilarating to be alive. Kathy sent a message stating, "Have we just landed? We are hosting a team dinner during her absence." The inquiry in several emails was, "Where are you? Why have you not responded to me?" I refrained from responding. My phone inundated me with calls and messages upon her arrival home. She persistently attempted to contact me, but I disregarded her efforts. Her mother attempted to call me following the initial day, but I did not answer. She refrained from attempting to engage my father due to our lack of closeness, and he is the sole remaining member of my family. Her warnings became increasingly intense following a week of neglect. "What is this?" It was one of the messages she dispatched. "We must converse. I am uncertain of your perceived knowledge, but no events are transpiring. There is no extramarital relationship occurring." After a week of silence, she finally messaged me, stating, "I apologize for the situation escalating. My involvement with a colleague was inconsequential. Your frequent absence coincided with my professional commitments. I made an error. I aim to conclude it without a mistake. I had anticipated this confession, yet it simply intensified my disdain for her. What prevented her from being honest? I harbored no aspirations for a future with this woman. Errors do not endure for 6, 8, or 12 months. Her entreaties for my return to salvage the marriage ultimately became lamentable. I declined to reply to her, even after she ceased her attempts to contact me for several weeks, that I wished to prevent her from discovering my residence or intruding into my personal affairs. I wished to prevent my sanctuary from being obliterated by this woman. She thereafter commenced dispatching derogatory messages, such as labeling him a coward on one occasion. You declined to communicate with me. You exhibit no consideration for us. Please return home so we can converse. Where are you located? I am capable of visiting you. Paul, let us converse and rectify the situation. Exasperating. While I do not remember all the messages, they seem to consist primarily of justifications with no authentic remorse. I let them enter one ear and out the other. Subsequently, I changed my mobile number. In June 2018, I received an email from Kathy indicating that she had retained legal counsel and intended to initiate divorce proceedings. I stated, "That sounds agreeable." This resulted in a deluge of emails soliciting my visit and various matters. She stated that she would cease to disturb me if I agreed to an uncontested divorce upon recognizing that this situation was unviable. Subsequent to my permission, I experienced actual freedom a few months later. Subsequent to my departure from the apartment, I was never required to encounter her again. She appeared to be more invested in that matter than I was. Despite the absence of resolution for both of us at tea times, I would contemplate her for several months, and indeed, the sorrow would unexpectedly overwhelm me, particularly upon hearing a song we formerly liked. Eventually, I ceased to contemplate her. Revision 2. Having finalized my divorce, circumstances are now favorable. I became acquainted with an exceptional girl. I was running on the trail just down the hill from my residence. We formed a connection when I assisted her in replacing a flat tire. Although she is several years my junior, she is exceptional and remarkably charming. She designates me as her mountain man and cherishes my lifestyle. While I am not eager to commit, I do not plan to abandon my pursuit of women altogether, but I do not intend to vacate the trailer in the near future. I relish outdoor activities and have streamlined my existence. It facilitated all aspects of my life, even the sorrow, and my former spouse, that I recognize that individuals react to these circumstances differently. I was lucky to be in my 3rd year of matrimony and not yet a father. I am convinced that I behave in my own best interests. Point 1. Need not dedicate their entire existence to an individual who engages in infidelity. If you encounter a similar situation, endeavor to refrain from excessive contemplation. Persist in leading your life. Your self-improvement will provide positive outcomes. I wish for everyone to experience the utmost quality of life. I have updated this approximately 5 times for clarity, and I wish to provide you with an update on my ex-wife's condition, that I expressed concern that my ex-wife was trying to locate me, as mentioned in my previous post. I departed from our former residence, located almost 2 hours away. I encountered her last weekend at a coffee shop I frequently use in the town near my residence. It appeared to me that it was not a coincidence. Fortunately, I successfully evaded detection before she became aware of my presence. In my 3rd update, I visited town this past weekend to procure groceries and made a stop at my usual coffee place. I was employing their complimentary internet to complete some work-related documentation. I completed my task and exited the coffee establishment. While en route to my pickup, I heard an individual exclaim, "Paul." Upon turning to gaze across the street, I observed Kathy. My ex-wife was waving at me. Ultimately, Armageddon had come. She rushed across the street towards me, and I remained there in astonishment. She approached and extended her hand, as if expecting an embrace. I halted her progress by instinctively extending my arms with palms facing upward. She seemed to be experiencing intense discomfort. She thereafter stated, "I have been seeking you, Paul. I have been eager to visit you since learning of your relocation here. May we engage in a conversation?" I felt like a creature imprisoned in a cage. Affirmative, I did. "Let us locate a table or similar surface to converse briefly." I have ultimately acquiesced. Upon her inquiry about visiting my residence, I resolutely declined. To the conclusion of the street, she followed me to a bench situated outside a modest shop. She commenced by commenting on my significant transformation and expressed her admiration for my new appearance, including my beard and physical health. She expressed enthusiasm on the transformation of my physique. Adorned in a tank top, little white shorts, and sporting a ponytail reminiscent of my past preferences, she was exuding charm. I maintained elevated expectations. She was evidently trying to evoke sexual allure. I needed to restrain myself to ascertain the direction of this situation. She commenced by expressing her remorse for the encounter. She asserted that following my departure, karma had profoundly affected her. Upon her employer's discovery of the affair, the atmosphere became exceedingly strained, prompting her final resignation. Her affair partner, who was engaged at the time, faced criticism and was sent to a different department inside the corporation. She responded by revealing the facts to his fiancée when he attributed all guilt to her, resulting in their separation. At this moment, she lowered her head and proceeded to weep. I remained silent, merely observing my surroundings. She maintained an upright posture and gazed at me for a duration. "What do you require from me?" I inquired. She told me that she had no intention of engaging in infidelity. She asserted that the company's policies and positions captivated her, and that her AP employed his charisma and influence to compromise her integrity. She recognized that she was exploiting him as much as he was exploiting her. Following my accusation of infidelity, she asserted her intention to confess. She consumed alcohol post-work to alleviate the guilt she experienced at that moment due to her self-loathing. She asserted that she felt profoundly foolish, utterly isolated, and as though her heart had shattered with grief shortly following my departure. She promptly terminated her contact with her AP. She was certain that locating me was necessary to ascertain any possibility of reconciliation, as I had declined to communicate or reach out to her. She sought a new beginning. She aspired to initiate a new beginning despite her awareness of our divorce. I merely observed her. I then presented it to her. "You possess no authority to emerge here and reverse the damage you have inflicted. Do you believe I will disregard all your actions that undermined our union? As I previously indicated, our relationship would conclude if you were unfaithful. Forgiveness is non-existent. This relationship will not be resumed. You excelled at it. Your departure irrevocably destroyed all we shared. How naive do you perceive me to be? One evening, I observed you entering a motel with him. Were you cognizant of that?" I realized that others were starting to observe that my voice had become increasingly loud. She seized my arm and began to weep. After allowing her to weep on my shoulder for a period, I gently distanced her. "I am entitled to all of this," she responded, looking up at me. "I am confident that I do. May I have the opportunity to take you out to dinner?" "I would prefer not to attend. I wish to engage in further discussion. I wish to ensure that we maintain transparency regarding all matters. You must allocate more time to me than you have previously." "Paul, kindly. I have profound affection for you, despite the possibility that you may not wish to receive this sentiment. Prior to your departure, I was unaware of the depth of my affection for you. You damaged me as much as I damaged you. I cannot forgive myself and do not wish to do so until my demise." She proceeded to weep uncontrollably and hyperventilate. I elevated her and embraced her. It appeared to be my one recourse for alleviating her distress. I realized then that I had broken her heart as profoundly as she had broken mine. While walking, we discovered a tranquil location to continue our discussion. I inquired how she had located me once she had composed herself. "Have you retained a private investigator?" Upon reflection, she replied negatively with a slight chuckle. She elucidated that she inquired about the situation when she encountered Stacy a few weeks earlier. Stacy failed to indicate that she had observed my presence. Kathy compelled her to disclose all the details. I cautioned Stacy against informing her. Hence, she was hesitant, although Kathy continued to press. Stacy ultimately acquiesced, but her only knowledge was that I resided nearby and was present in the area. During her days off, she started to visit here to monitor my well-being. I chuckled upon her remark, realizing that Stacy cannot refrain from speaking. She flushed with embarrassment that we ultimately opted for dinner at an enchanting establishment, including a patio. I ensured we abstained from consuming any beverages, as I did not intend to provide her with a justification to exhibit kindness towards me or claim she was too drunk to drive home. Indeed, we engaged in a productive dialogue. I subsequently accompanied her to her vehicle. She asserted that she had not engaged in any other romantic relationships since my departure and ardently pledged that I was her sole desire, therefore compelling me to extend my stay. I conveyed to her that it is still premature for me to pursue that path. She implored me to return, but I would not acquiesce. Following the provision of my new email address, I refrained from further communication. In answer to her request for my phone number, I stated that she would inundate me with messages and calls. She lamented it, although ultimately acquiesced to my decision. She assured me she would email details on her return to town the subsequent weekend before her departure. I inquired bluntly whether she would have forgiven me had I been the one committing infidelity prior to her entering the vehicle. Indeed, eventually, but solely if we engaged a marriage counselor and navigated the healing process through extensive dialogue, potentially culminating in a formal agreement. She replied, after a moment of contemplation, "Perhaps I could proceed with it." I responded, "in 5 or 10 years. She responded that she will wait if necessary. She grasped both of my hands, met my gaze, and declared, "God damn it, Paul, I will eternally love you and will do anything to demonstrate it." This assertion genuinely surprised me. Her comments persisted in disturbing me even after her departure. She articulated those words with great conviction. Nevertheless, I remained unable of picturing our reconciliation. Despite feeling improved over the situation, I could not regard her as a friend at this moment. Possibly a friend, however, that remained enigmatic. I returned home, engaged in an extended run, consumed some beer, and reflected on my progress. Can someone guarantee that she will not disrupt the peace I have established for myself? I was unaware. I had the advantage of time to analyze it and gain perspective, yet remained too fresh in my memory. This is likely my final update. Upon my initial submission of the tale to Reddit, the moderators repeatedly removed it. In short, I ceased all communication with my ex-wife for nearly a year prior to her locating me. She sought to reconcile and initiate a fresh beginning with us. You will be profoundly disillusioned if you anticipated that I would conform to the archetype of a submissive individual and absolve her. She conveyed her affection and remorse for the affair in an extensive email she sent me last week. She proposed to visit and stay with me for the weekend again. My response? I muted her. I conveyed to her that I had no intention of reconciling with her. I am completely content living independently, capitalizing on my isolated circumstances and maintaining simplicity. At 32, I'm not eager to implement alterations. I possess a personal self-determination strategy and have appreciated the companionship of several women and friends that I explicitly said in my email response that I had no intention of reconciling and refused to provide her with my phone number. I have lost both knowledge of and trust in you due to your decision to place your bet. I wish you well, and perhaps we may establish a friendship in the future, but not at this moment. She was irritated by my evasiveness and reacted in a revealing manner. She admitted that she had accepted a job offer from another state. Her actual objective was for me to join her, as she believed my remote employment would facilitate the relocation. She desired the opportunity to begin anew in a different location. She sought to visit me personally to attempt to persuade me. as her time before relocating was limited. Fortunately for me, her tenure concluded as I had a week of business travel planned that I am thankful that she will no longer be a part of my life. She will soon realize that her time with me has concluded. However, I expect to receive a few more emails. She will need to seek another partner, and she may perhaps betray their trust. All who read this, optimize your existence. Release the past and empower yourself to go forward. I wish you all the best of luck. Subscribe and activate the notification bell to remain informed about more astonishing real-life narratives occurring in your vicinity.